Well, it seems we hear about large-scale cyber attacks almost every week, targeting big businesses, schools, even hospitals. It's a growing problem nationwide, and yes, it is happening right here in New Mexico as well. Tonight, 4 investigator Nathan O'Neill takes us inside our state's push to protect against cyber criminals.
In New Mexico, cyber criminals have targeted a host of victims. In 2019, hackers targeted Las Cruces public schools, crippling the district's network. Then, in March of this year, a hospital in Gallup was hit by a cyber attack, forcing hospital staff to operate on pen and paper in the middle of the pandemic. And just last May, a cybersecurity attack targeted Sol Orions, an Albuquerque-based company that consults on federal nuclear weapons projects. In each case, few details are known about the extent of the damage and the source of the attack. But across the country, high-profile hacking is making headlines. One of the most notable, when hackers paralyzed a gas pipeline on the East Coast and demanded a $5 million ransom. Ransomware attacks can target anyone, anywhere, hijacking entire computer networks and then paralyzing them before eventually demanding a ransom. And cybersecurity experts say this is a problem that's only getting worse.
In the past 5 years or so, we've seen an uptick in ransomware attacks.
M.K. Palmore is a retired federal agent who previously led the cybersecurity branch for the FBI in San Francisco. He now works for the cybersecurity firm Palo Alto Networks.
The degree to which we should be paying attention to this has never been higher. And again, that goes everywhere from consumers all the way to large-scale businesses.
According to a recent report conducted by Palo Alto Networks, the average ransomware payment just 5 years ago was around $500. That skyrocketed in 2021 to an average ransom payment of $850,000.
And we have seen payments north of $10 million as well, targeting large-scale business entities.
As the threat of ransomware continues to plague nearly every sector of life, some of the most sensitive personal data about New Mexicans sits on state government servers, including data from the MVD and tax and unemployment records.
They target the weakest.
Raja Sambendam is the Chief Information Security Officer for New Mexico. It's a new job to handle a new threat. We met him at this secure facility in Albuquerque, where he showed us state servers that few people ever see. So when it comes to state government, what becomes vulnerable? What kind of information would be vulnerable to this type of attack?
Very good question. So data is the name of the game, right? And especially sensitive data that can be monetized, right? Those are the ones that the bad guys are after.
Raja tells us the state's networks have not been directly targeted by these types of crimes, but the state routinely scans their systems for possible threats.
So we exceed by far the best practices to monitor.
While he could not disclose specifics about their security systems, Raja claims New Mexico ranks in the top 10% of states in prevention practices.
The security protections that I work on is layered. There are multiple layers, so to speak. And then the agency themselves have their own layer.
Would the state ever entertain the idea of paying out a ransom?
I don't think that is in principle a message that I have received, right? Very similar to what the feds are doing, right? You know, the feds, by principle, they do not subscribe to paying a ransom.
But finding the culprits behind these types of attacks can be problematic.
It's extremely difficult. I happen to be a retired federal law enforcement official. I know that in conducting these investigations, they happen to be some of the most challenging types of investigations that can be conducted.
One of the biggest hurdles, pinpointing who's responsible.
Once you get beyond that, getting folks actually rolled into the justice system can be extremely difficult if there are not pre-existing diplomatic relations with the countries for which most of these individuals are found in.
Which is why cybersecurity experts continue to sound the alarm about these ever-growing threats.
The more you are aware, the better you can be prepared.
Now, there are a few things personally that you can do to protect yourself and your employer, especially if you're working from home. The easiest, of course, is to be aware of suspicious phishing emails and websites. Then it comes down to passwords. Make sure that you change them frequently and that those passwords are hard to crack. Now, we're going to put a lot more details and a lot more specific tips for you to protect yourself on our website. That's KOB.com. I'm Nathan O'Neill for Investigates.